Hello everyone, and welcome to A Day in the Life of the Hudson Harbor 2020. I'm Chris Bowser, and in this video, we're going to be exploring the waterways of New York Harbor, including the Harlem River, the East River, the Bronx River, and the lower Hudson River Estuary. What is an estuary? It's where a river meets the sea, where fresh water from rainfall in the watershed mixes and mingles with salt water from the ocean, and usually with tides that rise and fall twice a day, just like they do here. There'll be two other videos that actually take us up the Hudson River into the brackish and freshwater parts of the estuary. In this video, we're going to meet a lot of interesting educators. They're going to teach us about the animals and habitats that thrive here, the water quality parameters that make this area unique, and the diverse waterfront communities that call New York Harbor home. As you're watching these videos, be sure to print out this data sheet or just grab a pencil and paper, because you are the scientist and you can record what's going on. Pay special attention to salinity, the amount of salt that's in the water here, because at the end of the video we'll have a presentation by a guest scientist. In the meantime, it's time to start exploring a day in the life of the Hudson Harbor.
Hello everyone, my name is Jenna and I'm an environmental educator for New York State Parks in the New York City region. And welcome to GANTRY PLAZA State Park. Right now, we're about 5 miles up the East River from New York Harbor and about 300 miles down from where the Hudson River starts in the Adirondacks. Now, on the surface of the river, we see lots of cargo boats, ferries, and recreational boats. But what's underneath? We're here today to find out. New York City's waterways are some of the most highly trafficked. But what does that mean for the life underneath? Turbidity is a measure of how cloudy or how murky the water is, and is caused by suspended particles. Now, these suspended particles could be a number of things, including loose sediments, plankton, and pollutants. Now, this is our turbidity tube. This is how we measure our turbidity. At the bottom, we have the Secchi disc. Can you see that? It is a black and white checkerboard that sits at the bottom of this tube. Now, how it works is you can see it clearly now, but when we fill this tube up with water, it'll be a little bit harder to see because of the suspended particles, right? So we're gonna fill it up with water and then slowly release it from the bottom. Once we can see the Secchi disc again, once we can see that black and white checkerboard, we're gonna have my friend Annabelle over here yell stop. And then we'll be able to take a measure from the side. All right? Pour in the water. Keep on. Can you see that Secchi disc? No, you can't because of the suspended particles. All right, now let's release the water. Here we go. You let me know when you see that Secchi disc, friends. Oh, okay, we can see it. All right, there it is. There it is. Wow, look at that white and black checkerboard. Now let's take a measure of where it is. Let's see. It is about 101.
Hi everyone, my name is Robin, this is LaToya. We work for the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, and we're here today celebrating the annual Day in the Life of the Hudson Harbor event.
All right, so today we're going to be doing the salinity test of the East River. So let's stop a moment and think about the word salinity. What is salinity? Salinity is the amount of salt that is found in water. Now remember that the East River is a brackish water system, which means that it is a mixture of both salt and fresh water, and the way we're going to measure that salt is by using a hydrometer. And let's take a look at the hydrometer. What do you think the reading says? So now that we have added our water to the hydrometer and we have taken a look at the measurement, remember that we are looking at the parts per thousand measurement, which means that if there are 1,000 parts, whatever measurement you see, that's the amount of salt that's in that water. So when we look at this, it says that there are 22 parts per 1,000 for salt in the East River.
Whoa, check that out. So tell us, what are we looking at here? What is this big sea creature that is running all over you?
It's a spider crab.
That's a spider crab?
So he's covered in tunicates. If you take a close look, there's a whole bunch of sea squirts growing on top of him.
Nice.
So it's a decorator crab, so he'll just take a bunch of things and stick them to himself as a natural camouflage.
Yeah.
And when he's doing this natural camouflage, it allows him to hang out in our oyster reefs, for example, or other places along the harbor.
Hello there, and welcome to FRESHKILLS Park. We are right now on a wetland, a saltwater wetland on the western shore of Staten Island. FRESHKILLS used to be called FRESHKILLS Landfill, and it was the largest landfill in the world. All of New York City's trash went here. That was covered and is turning into a healthy grassland.
Hi, my name is Jose Ramirez Garofolo. This is my colleague, Dr. Shannon Curley. We're here at FRESHKILLS Park, seining for fish. And as you can see, we have a lot of these long, elongated silver fish. What do you notice about this fish? Well, one thing is that its sides are very silver, and this is why we call them Atlantic silver sides. So these are actually the most common species that we find here at FRESHKILLS Park. They can be found throughout the Hudson River Estuary.
Hello, I'm Christina. I'm with the Brooklyn Bridge Park Conservancy, and we are here in Brooklyn Bridge Park at Pier 4.
All right, I have a really cool fish here for you to check out. This is a schooling fish, so we actually caught a few of them in one pass. And one of the most important characteristics about this fish are those small, darker gray, thin lines or stripes running down its body. This is a fish with an eye on either side of its head. You guys can pause now and see if you can try to identify that fish. This is the striped bass. Yes, so those lines, those stripes on its body are pretty important for figuring out what this fish was.
Hey, my name is River and I work for the Department of Environmental Conservation, and we're here at beautiful Jamaica Bay. Right now, this is low tide. This is the Atlantic Ocean, and the tide is pretty low right now, but later this afternoon, it'll be high tide and the water will be all the way up to where Casey is standing.
So we've got ourselves here a native saltwater fish that we just caught in the same net here in Jamaica Bay. Now, this fish is silvery, and it's got a little silvery line on it, but that describes a lot of fish we have here. So some features I like to look for are the fins. So you can see along this fish's back, the dorsal fin, it only has one dorsal fin. So that rules out the more common Atlantic silver side. The single dorsal fin, as well as that long upper jaw and shorter lower jaw, tell us that this is an anchovy. That's right, this is an anchovy. Just like you'll see on pizza, this is what they look like in the wild.
So we could see exactly what number we're at right here. So 30 or 1.002.
Hi, and welcome to Hudson River Park. My name's Tina, and I'm with Hudson River Park's River Project. Right now we're on Pier 40, which is in the lower section of Hudson River Park, a park that goes from 59th Street
down to Chambers Street on the west side of Manhattan. We're here today for Day in the Life of the Hudson and Harbor. And you'll see we have some pretty hazy overcast conditions today, some fog. Actually, the Freedom Tower is even less visible than it was a few minutes ago. We're only seeing about half of the tower right now. So some pretty general overcast conditions. So we're really excited to share some of our findings and the wildlife that's living right here in Hudson River Park. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name is Siddhartha Hayes with Hudson River Park's River Project, and for today's Day in the Life at Pier 40, we checked some of our fish ecology survey gear, like this crab pot, and we caught quite a few different organisms that we'd like to share some of the highlights with you. So one of our animals is a very common fish. This is an oyster toadfish, and this, you can see why they're called toadfish. They have these huge jaws, and they're not just called toadfish because they look like toads. They actually croak like toads. They constrict their swim bladder, 19 centimeters, which is an organ most fish have to float and change their buoyancy, but these guys use their swim bladder also to make noise to communicate with each other. It's a blue crab. So this is a nice blue crab. And these guys are one of the most aggressive predators we have here. You can see why they get their name from this blue coloration on their carapace. We have a lined seahorse. This is an adult female. You can see she's trying to hold on to my finger with her prehensile tail. They're not particularly strong swimmers, and so they need to hold on with that tail. To compensate for that, they're incredibly good at hiding. And they have this armor plating alongside their body. So they come in here to spawn every year, so it's really great to always see seahorses. And thank you for joining us.
Hi everybody, my name's Toland and we're out here today to test water temperature for Day in the Life of the Hudson River. We test water temperature for a number of different reasons. By testing our water temperature, we can get a better idea of what's going on in the environment and with the fish that are living inside of it. Now, I'm gonna take out my thermometer, which is what we use to tell the temperature of the water in the Hudson River. We can see that there is a blue line that is showing us what temperature the water is on two different temperature scales. We have degrees Fahrenheit here on the left-hand side, and we have degrees Celsius here on the right-hand side. By looking at where this blue line is reaching up to, we can see that we are at about 65 to 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll write down a 65.5 for that. And we're also at 19 degrees Celsius. Just so you know, these are the two different temperature scales that most people around the world use. Here in the United States, we mostly use degrees Fahrenheit, but degrees Celsius is a really popular temperature scale to use in scientific projects. So we also like to include that as well.
Hi there, I'm Michael Stevens. I'm one of the museum educators at the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum, which is right behind us at Pier 86. We're over here visiting at Pier 84 with the Hudson River Park, and we are measuring the salinity of the estuary on today, October 22nd, 2020, for Snapshot Day and the Day in the Life. And so we're going to find out how much salt is in this water today. And I invite you to make your own predictions. We already pulled some brackish water from right here. So I'm gonna show you what these are, and then I'll pause for a little bit so you can try to make your own calculations. So we filled this up in our first hydrometer. We have a reading of approximately 16 parts per thousand.
Hey guys, Mr. Chris here from Hudson Montessori School. We're here in the Day in the Life of the Hudson, and our location is River Mile 0.5. So behind me, we're looking at downtown Manhattan. We're here stationed at the Morris Canal in Jersey City, New Jersey. Today we're here measuring dissolved oxygen, or DO. What is dissolved oxygen? Dissolved oxygen is the amount of oxygen gas found in the water. Why would we measure that? Why do we measure dissolved oxygen? Well, dissolved oxygen indicates healthy waters for plants and fish. So we need between 5 and 12 ppm, or parts per million, of dissolved oxygen to indicate healthy waters for our plants and fish. We are going to add our titration drops, and according to how many drops it takes to turn the liquid back to clear is our ppm. So count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that looks about right. Let's check it out with our white paper. So that means it's 6 ppm, or parts per million. Our dissolved oxygen is 6 ppm.
Hey everyone, I am Ranger Mara with the Urban Park Rangers here in Inwood Hill Park. The Urban Park Rangers are a city agency that provide education and wildlife monitoring for the city of New York. We are in Inwood Hill Park by the Hudson River, just at the end of Dyckman Street at the south end of the park. And today we are going to be doing some water monitoring and water quality testing.
Hi everyone, Ranger Nick here, and we just concluded our first seine, and on that pass we actually caught a couple organisms. I will tell you that this is a fish, but look for specific markers that may help you identify what type. Things like the shape, the size, and any key distinguishing features this fish may have. I think this little fish is an Atlantic silverside.
Hello everybody and welcome to a day in the life in the Hudson and Harbor and the Bronx River. Today we are in the estuary portion of the Bronx River here at Concrete Plant Park, which you can actually come to if you take the 6 train and get off at Whitlock Avenue. So here at the Bronx River today, I want you to guess, is this low tide or high tide? Take a moment to look at the surroundings and make your guess. There's some clues over here. So if you guessed low tide, you're correct. And the way you can tell is because the river is really, really low here in the estuary portion. And if you look all the way up to these rocks, you see there's one all the way in the distance that has a white top on it, and there's a dark stain underneath it. That's called a tide stain. So that marks where the tide can be, where the river can flow up to be when it's high tide.
So today we're going to take you on a journey. Right now we are at the Harlem River at the Water's Edge Garden. So if you look at a map of Randall's Island, we are on the west side, and you can kind of see East Harlem behind us.
So when we went to catch these with our seine net, when we pulled up our seine net, there were hundreds. We haven't counted fully how many yet, but we're guessing around 400 in just one seine net.
Wow. Very cool. So for those of you at home, if you're interested in trying to ID this fish, I would pause your video right now.
First of all, take a look at the fins. You can see this tail fin right here. It's a little square, but it is still kind of that nice rounded edge. And then also we've got an anal fin, which perhaps you can see on this fish right here. You also look at the fact that it's this dark olive, kind of speckly with very faint stripes in it, not as striped as maybe some of its related species. And then you'd also take a look at this head. So if you can tell, it's kind of rounded, it's a little bit blunt, it's a very hefty, thick head, as opposed to maybe some of the more slimmer, pointier fish shapes of this size, coloration, and habitat. So when you put that all together, it might lead you to a species called the mummy chug. And if that's where you ended up, you'd be correct.
Have a great day in the life of the Hudson and Harbor. Bye everyone, thanks!
Thank you so much for joining us for Day in the Life of the Hudson River and Harbor 2020. We just spent time looking at all the parameters measured in the harbor section, and now we're going to take a deeper dive into one of those parameters. So if you're interested in this exploration, stick around. So the one parameter we are going to be looking at for the harbor is salinity, which is something that makes the Hudson more than just a river. So we have 153 miles stretching from the Hudson Harbor, all the way up to the Troy Dam that is actually an estuary, which means that we have this mix of fresh and salty water. We have salt water coming in from the Atlantic Ocean, and we have our most northern source of fresh water from Lake the Clouds all the way up here in the Adirondacks. However, our freshwater source is really anything that is falling within this watershed. So we have all these small tributaries and streams that are eventually feeding into the main stem Hudson. So this watershed is really something that connects all of the day in the life participants as one. Now, we have this freshwater section mixing with this saltwater section to create a type of water called brackish. Brackish is just a mix of fresh and salt water, and it's something that really makes the Hudson so unique and dynamic. And the reason why the Hudson is dynamic in terms of salinity is because of the tides. So we have 2 high and 2 low tides every day. Every 6 hours we have a switch from high to low tide, which is often why the Hudson is called the river that flows both ways. On a flooding tide, we have this salty seawater being pushed up from the Atlantic Ocean into the Hudson River Estuary, and on an ebbing tide we have this fresh water pushing that salt down back towards the ocean. So because we have this tidal system, our salinity is always changing, extremely dynamic, and makes the Hudson River Estuary as unique as it is.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for participating in a day in the life of the Hudson and Harbor. Remember, there's 3 videos that cover the entire estuary from New York Harbor, upriver all the way to Albany, Troy, and beyond. We hope you enjoy them all. Keep exploring, and thank you for being part of a day in the life of the Hudson and Harbor.